Good day, dear learners. I welcome you in this today's lecture in which I'll be talking about disaster management with special reference to earthquakes. So let's have an overview of this content. By the end of the lecture or by the end of these 30 minutes, you'll be able to define what earthquakes are, understand the concept, the causes and types, explain the effects of an earthquake and the significance of seismic hazard zonation. And lastly, you'll be able to demonstrate knowledge of preparedness, mitigation, and emergency response strategies for earthquake disasters. So let's get started. So first, let's look into what earthquakes are. So for that, we have to dive back into the history of how the earth was formed. So if you go way back around 300 million years ago, earth did not have 7 continents. In fact, it had just one massive piece of land known as Pangaea, which was surrounded by a single ocean called Panthalassa. So with time, as the history has it, that Alfred Wegener, he was a scientist, he proposed a notion of an ancient supercontinent, which he named as Pangaea, sometimes spelled as Pangaea. So the Pangaea broke, and then there was a horizontal displacement of the continent. This is called the Wegener's theory of continental drift. So now he gave this concept of the plate tectonic. Now it says that the earth crust, it consists of some plates beneath it, the lithosphere, which is known as the tectonic plates. So there are 6 major and 20 minor plates, okay? And some researchers, okay, they have different view regarding the minor plates as well, and all of which are floating independently. But the rate of the movement of the plate is extremely slow. It is a few millimeter per year. And the energy that is released to move this plate is provided by the internal heat of the earth. So we have the energy, we have the plates which are moving beneath the lithosphere, and then we do have different pieces, not one single plate, but different pieces of plate. So this is what I was talking about, how there was one supercontinent surrounded by the ocean, and later on, with time, it kind of shifted, the continental drifted apart, and now we have, this is the earth that we see today. Now, why is this important? Because this is laying the foundation of what we call as earthquakes. So earthquake is a shaking of the ground caused by a sudden breaking of movement of large section of tectonic plates. Now you can imagine they're moving, they might collide, and the heat is being generated, they might overlap one another, right? And if they might be trapping heat, they might explode. Anything can happen there because basically the place where they have been joined is known as the fault line, right, or the fracture. So the earthquake can range from minor tremors to major, noticeable, devastating events. And we do have, different pictures, and we have seen in the news also how the ground shakes and how everything comes crumbling down in just few seconds, right? Now, in an earthquake, you have to understand few terminologies. Okay, not difficult. I'm sure you must be knowing this. That when there are 2 blocks of earth within this, when they suddenly slip past one another, so the surface where the slip is being made is called as the fault or fault plane, right? And the location below the earth from where the earthquake starts is called as the hypocenter. So this is the hypocenter, and the place directly above it is the epicenter. So these are the 3 terminology that should be clear to you when we talk about earthquake. And usually we do talk about, right? The epicenter was in, for example, in Nepal during the earthquake. So what was epicenter? The place, the location directly above where the origination of the earthquake took place. So what causes earthquakes and why do they happen? Now you have to understand that the earth has 4 layers: the inner core, the outer core, mantle, and crust. See, this is it. And the mantle makes up a very thin skin on the surface. And this thin skin is not all in one piece. It is made of many little pieces. It's like a puzzle, the tectonic plates which are moving. And the edges of the tectonic plates are called the plate boundaries. And these plate boundaries are made up of many faults. And most of the earthquake around the world occurs on these fault lines. Because see, the edges of the plates are rough. So when they get stuck while the rest of the plate keeps moving. So finally, when the plate has moved far enough that the edges they sometimes unstick on one of the fault line, and then there is an earthquake that occurs. So how do earthquake are recorded, or how do scientists they measure the size of an earthquake? These are the two another important questions that needs to be answered. So earthquakes are recorded using a seismograph, right? Which records the ground motions or seismogram. So a seismograph has a fixed base and a suspended weight that remains, here you can see here, that remains still during shaking. And once the shaking, the tremors occurs, you can see the lines that are here. And that's how the scientists, they use this recording and they estimated that the earthquake, the fault are deep underground and they can measure it, but to some extent, right? So an earthquake size is called what we call it as magnitude, which is the single value for each event. It measures the energy that is released during that at the source of the earthquake. So that's we call it as a magnitude. In contrast, the intensity would be described as the strength of shaking experienced at different location. And of course, that can vary depending on the distance from the epicenter to the different locations. So we have the magnitude, we have the intensity, we have the seismogram, and we have the seismograph. Now, Richter scale. This is also an essential tool for measuring the magnitude of the earthquake, right? And it was developed in 1935 by Charles Richter and Bino Guntberg. And this scale has been used as a cornerstone of seismology, helping both scientists and the public, make sense of the earthquake. So you can see right from 1 to 10 how the magnitude of the Richter scale will actually tell us the whether the earthquake is a slight, minor, light, moderate, strong, or a great earthquake, which can be a catastrophe as well. Then we have modified Mercalli scale. You can see here the description. This is given in Roman number from 1 to 12 depending on the impact it has. So this measures the intensity of the earthquake. That measures the magnitude. A modified Mercalli scale measures the intensity of the earthquake. And now you can see, take a pause, you can look at the table from 1 to 12. What are the levels and what are the description of those levels? Now coming to the types of earthquakes, we have divergent boundary. Okay, when the two plates are forced each apart, so of course they form a drift zone in between. So this is very common in ocean beds. So that's how the mid-Atlantic rivers is being formed. Convergent meaning it will be colliding with one another. One will overlap the another. One plate is forced over the another during the movement, creating a thrust fault. Transform fault would be when it's not like divergent, it's not like convergent, but the plate here slip each other. So this is known as the strike slip method. So this is the transform plate boundary. Now, earthquake wave and the seismic waves, you have to understand, are the waves of energy which are caused by sudden breaking of rocks within the earth. So the energy that travels through the earth and is recorded on the seismograph is the seismic wave. So we have two types of waves, the body waves and the surface waves. So let's have a look at one by one. Primary waves are the longitudinal waves. Okay, the first kind of body wave is the P wave or the primary wave. It's the fastest kind of seismic wave, and the P wave can move through gaseous or solid rocks, fluid, water, and the liquid layer of the earth. So it pushes and pulls the rock. It moves through just like sound waves push and pull the air. Secondary wave is known as the transverse wave. Okay, so this wave it's slower than P wave and can move only through solid rock. And this wave moves rock up and down or side to side. So the S wave arrives at the surface with some time lag. Then love wave is also kind of a surface wave, and it is named love because after the mathematician AEH Love, and it's the fastest surface wave and moves the ground from side to side. Then Rayleigh waves, this is another kind of surface wave in the, of course, named after Lord Rayleigh. Wave rolls around the ground just like a wave across a lake or an ocean. So most of the shaking felt from an earthquake is due to the Rayleigh wave, which can be much larger than the other wave. Now, this is a very interesting map you can see here. The around if you look at the globe, the 90% of the world's earthquake is taking place in the red zone. So this is known as the ring of fire. If you look closely, it is horseshoe shaped. So this is the Pacific belt or the Pacific ring of fire. So majority of the, you can say, it is a direct result of plate tectonics and the movement of the collisions of lithosphere plates. And we have already mapped out, so maximum number of earthquakes are occurring in this ring of fire. And thus it has the name ring of fire. Now, let's have a look at the causes. What causes the earthquake? Of course, some of the things that I've already discussed about the tectonic plates. But here again, we'll divide it into two categories, the natural causes and the anthropogenic causes. So the natural causes would be the tectonic movements, already discussed. Then comes the volcanic activities. Sometimes the volcanic eruption, when it takes place, it spews lava. So much so that the amount of force that is being released, that can trigger the earthquake. That can cause tremors in the fault lines. Then dislocation of the Earth's crust. So earthquakes may be caused by the dislocation of the crust beneath the surface of the Earth. There might also be some kind of an adjustment in the inner rock belts. For example, adjustment between SEMA, that is silicon and magnesium, and Cl, that is silica and aluminium. So in the interior of the Earth's crust. So the earthquake which is erupting or which is being caused by the adjustment of the inner rock belt is known as the plutonic earthquake. Then the pressure of the gases in the interior. Now you can imagine the pressure is building up inside the Earth. So the expansion and contraction of the gases may also cause the sudden shake of the Earth. And the other causes could be the landslide, a piece of land when it falls down on the Earth. That might also be, if the fault line is present there, it will start the tremors. Then removal of land masses and disposition of materials, faulting and folding of rock beds are all responsible for causing major earthquakes. Now, what are the anthropogenic causes of earthquakes? So, how is man responsible for creating earthquakes? Of course, first is the impounding large quantity of water that is held up in a dam. That might also disrupt the crustal balance beneath it. And the striking example or classical example is the Koyna earthquake in Maharashtra. You'll be so surprised to know that they have to maintain a water level limit in the dam. As soon as the limit increases in the dam, they can feel the tremors. So they have to maintain the water level. Moreover, the shock waves through the rocks, which can be because of the underground testing of different bombs and weapons, that can also trigger an earthquake. Then mining activities, we're using already explosive right beneath underground. So definitely the more deep you go and the more explosive you use, so definitely the blasting, then excavation, all that disturbs and might trigger minor earthquakes. Then even hydraulic fracturing, which injects high pressure fluids into rocks, can cause fractures and may result in an earthquake. Underground nuclear explosions release immense energy, and that energy can create seismic waves, which is similar to a natural earthquake. So what are the effects of an earthquake? So of course, whenever we're talking, if earthquake is a disaster, remember in my last lecture, there will be economic loss, there will be mortality, or biological community will be at loss, and of course the environment will suffer, right? So first, of course, first and foremost, human loss and injuries. All the anthropogenic structures will come crumbling down, and there'll be massive infrastructure losses, disruption of transportation, communication, utilities, and railways. Of course, and all that comes with a cost. So even the loss of livelihood and business interruptions, will strain the local and the national economy. Then displacement of communities, how the destruction will force the people to leave their homes and move to different locations. And it either could be temporary displacement or prolonged displacement as well. Then environmental impact in the form of ground rupturing, soil liquefaction, change in the river course may alter the landscape and our ecosystem as well. Sometime one disaster might lead to another disaster. So earthquake might lead to a tsunami as well. It might trigger the tremor inside the ocean bed, might trigger a big wave, because that energy that is released in the ocean will be carried as a big wave tsunami to the coastal areas. Then aftershocks also, there are some tremors, the secondary tremors are also felt, that might also prolong a fear or instability in that area. Then health risk as well, because collapsed sanitation system, there was limited access to clean water and so on. Then even the social disruption. Families and communities face long-term challenges in rebuilding trust, infrastructure, and you can say societal cohesion. Then cultural heritage loss. How can we not forget this? Our beautiful ancestral cultural buildings and monuments and infrastructure, they're irreplaceable. And if they're damaged and if they're just completely destroyed, if they're converted into rubble, how can we build it again? So it's a major, these are the, major loss that can be incurred because of an earthquake. So what is earthquake risk management? So it refers to a systematic process of first identifying, accessing, and reducing the risk associated with earthquakes. So in order to, of course, minimize the loss of life, property damage, and social disruption. So effective earthquake risk management will include hazard mapping, building earthquake resilient infrastructure, public awareness and early warning system, and of course, backed up with emergency planning. Then we can say, yes, our plan is great and we have, it's a very effective earthquake risk management plan. So earthquake zonation, meaning that the seismic hazard map helps in classification of the areas which are earthquake prone. Now, if you look into this is very interesting. The source is also given here. In this particular image, you can see the seismic zone map of India. And here we are starting from zone 2 to zone 5. That means India is divided into 4 zones, from zone 2 to zone 5 with respect to the observed and probable seismic activities. So no location exists in zone 1. That means as no location in the country is considered completely free from seismic hazard. So every place in India is, you can say, is susceptible that earthquake can occur in that particular area. So now coming to earthquake preparedness and response. So the first priority in earthquake response is to minimize the loss of life. So by undertaking effective search and rescue operations and evacuations of affected people. Now evacuation is characterized by preventive, rescue-oriented search and rescue, and then of course all that should be undertaken by trained personnel who rescue and attend to the casualties under adverse conditions. Now coming to preparedness, before an earthquake and after an earthquake. What do we have to prepare before an earthquake? So first, let's make the buildings resilient enough, right? Secure heavy furniture and appliances and utilities. If you know that you're living in a place where it's earthquake prone, so let's not have a lot of wall hangings and our shelves, hangings. Anything that hanging will come down. So we have to secure everything, our furnitures, our appliances and utilities. Always have an emergency kit prepared. The kit should have the torch, the first aid box. It should have matchsticks, medicines, water, and some uh, food which has a longer shelf life, non-perishable food items. And of course, develop a family community evacuation program, conduct awareness program and earthquake drills, install early warning system, and monitor the seismic activity. And if any time we find that yes, and we predict that an earthquake can occur, then of course we have to plan accordingly. Then also identify safe spots and emergency shelters. It's easy to, announce that earthquake is going to occur within 10 minutes. Please evacuate. But what will it create? It will create chaos. People will be on the street. They'll be running helter and shelter. They'll be on bikes, on cars, and they don't know where to go. Because unless and until you don't identify which is the safe spot, which is the emergency shelter that they should go to, so it's no use declaring it, right? So there'll be a lot of traffic jam, there'll be stampedes, and it will create all the more problems. Now, preparedness after an earthquake has occurred. What do we need to do if an earthquake has already occurred? Conduct first search and rescue operation, provide immediate medical assistance to the injured, arrange for temporary shelter, food, and clean water, access damage to any building or infrastructures, and be sure that the second tremors, if the secondary tremors don't, destroy the infrastructure further. Restore essential services such as electricity, water, and communication, support rehabilitation and reconstruction activities, offer psychological and social support to affected communities. Now, here you have to understand, because if any disaster is occurring, the first thing that is disrupted is the electricity, your communication, and the water facility. Because in our country, you must have seen even in the buildings, you have a water pipe of the drinking water that is running from the you can say in the building, and adjacent to the water pipe will be our sewage pipe. So any event, if it occurs, the first thing is the disruption of the pipe, leakage of the pipe, or the pipes are completely lost, and there will be mingling of the water taking place. And if it does take place, even though it won't be visible to a naked eye, the water will contain the human waste, and as a result, that will cause different communicable diseases and different health problems later on. So the primary, you can see that can be the secondary effect of the events that have occurred. Then preparedness strategies for earthquake versus earthquake drill, which helps individuals, schools, and communities practice and practice and practice, and ensure that they adopt the safe actions such as drop, cover, and hold on. Then emergency kit, that is another preparedness strategies. We should have the first aid supplies, the flashlights, and everything, and even the communication tools, the emergency numbers, all that should be in that emergency. So once you hear the siren, you hear the hooter, just grab the bag and rush out, because that at that time you won't be finding time that you will take your bag, put the items inside and rush. So some emergency bag should be there. Then evacuation planning is another which is the safe location to move, which will reduce all the more different, you can say, it will reduce injuries and confusion during emergency. Now coming to the earthquake recovery. Now, the post-earthquake recovery planning begins immediately after the event, where you're planning the funds, you're managing the recovery process, transitional shelter programs, what are the decisions pertaining to relocation of the building, the debris management, so the seismic activities and the assessment. How are you focusing on the vulnerable segment, that is the children, that is women and elderly people, and even the differently able individuals. Then income support and livelihood recovery programs, that comes under the earthquake recovery program. Then comes emergency response mechanism. That means what is the immediate rescue and evacuation operation. the search and rescue of emergency team, medical aid and first aid services, the coordination through emergency management system, communication and resource mobilization. Then relief operations, temporary shelters and relief camps are to be set up, food, water, sanitation services, healthcare and essential supplies, support for vulnerable population, coordination with relief agencies. Then in under recovery and rehabilitation, we want to build up, reconstruct the damaged infrastructure, restore, give financial support, provide psychological rehabilitation and long-term community recovery. Then build back better concept. What does this concept talk about? It talks about safer, stronger reconstruction. It talks about earthquake resistant infrastructure, improved planning and policies, reduce future vulnerability, and sustainable and resilient development. So education and awareness is a key component of earthquake risk reduction. It is the most effective non-structural measure because through awareness program, it is helping the communities understand preparedness measure. And the school-based education, it plays a critical role in building long-term resilience, right? Because it's teaching children about safety practice right from an early stage. Then community participation through drill work and workshop training program also strengthens the local capacity. Then we need professional training for engineering, architect and planners, risk communication through media, camping and local outreach improves preparedness and promotes a culture of safety here. Then a bottom-up approach is very important in education, which involves individuals, the families, the school and community, which enhances the disaster preparedness and resilience. Then also integrating earthquake education, especially in those areas where earthquakes are taking place, we need to integrate the topics of earthquake into their syllabus, that every child, right from, because they're studying EVS right from class 1, so they have to understand the basic concept of earthquake. And this will also, and we have to make sure that even our policymakers will have to include those topics in their textbooks. And that will also support the sustainable disaster risk reduction. Then overall, there should be a widespread education awareness transform, especially to the vulnerable population, into informed, prepared, and resilient communities. Now, we do find that in the education, remember, we're not only providing formal education, we also through informal education. And informal could be through magazines, through news, and just a simple discussions among friends. That you're traveling to a mall, there you see some hoardings there, some advertisement. You are providing the information regarding earthquake. And non-formal education is another agency through which you can provide the information, the knowledge regarding earthquake. Why? Because we need to educate each and every individual in the community, make them efficient enough, make the local community skillful enough, resilient enough to cope up with earthquake. So can you imagine a place where earthquakes are occurring and they have little to no knowledge regarding what they're going to do, how are they going to predict, what first aid are they going to provide, what psychological support are they going to give? So it becomes difficult because you just cannot imagine a disaster taking place and then you're calling the rescue team and you're waiting for the rescue team to do their job. Of course, they will do their job, but for them to come to that place, it will take time. And sometimes the earthquakes are so devastating that they will also disrupt the roads. So sometimes they have to use air transport in order to come to that place. So till that time, who will manage it? It's us. It's me and you. It's the local community that has to join hands and that has to look into this, be well prepared with the proper set of knowledge, understanding, and skills in order to manage the earthquake. So to conclude, what did we see so far? We saw that the earthquakes can cause devastating loss of life. There's always a negative effect of earthquake because either there'll be loss of property, loss of life, and loss of livelihood. But the impact can be significantly reduced. How? Through effective disaster risk management. So preparedness, resilient infrastructure, early warning systems, and community awareness are the key to minimize risk and enhance safety. So if you're integrating scientific knowledge, sustainable planning, and collective action, societies can strengthen resilience and build back safer, stronger, and more prepared for future disasters. Right? I hope you had a good time looking into and listening to this lecture of earthquakes. So, for more detailed study on earthquakes, please refer to the references that are given at the end of this slide. You can click and refer to them. So, thank you all for your patience listening. And till I meet you again with another case study, take care of yourself and have a good day. Thank you.